Welcome to the bonfire, unkindled one.
Hey everyone, it's BlueLizardJello and welcome back to Everything Possible in Dark Souls 3. Before we get on with today's episode in earnest, we do have a couple of items that we have missed. I know, shocking that I would dare to miss an item, but thank you to everyone who has pointed out that I have in fact missed a couple of these. So we are starting from the chapel bonfire and we're going to knock down this bridge. And while we're waiting for this to collapse, I want to give out a special shout out to a good friend of mine named James. Now, I don't normally do this, but James is a 7-year-old video game player, and he loves the Dark Souls series, and he has been playing along with my videos. So James, if you are listening, hi, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope you continue to enjoy. Sliding down this ladder, all we need to do is run right around this corner, and hidden in this crevice are 4 Rime Blue moss clumps. Absolutely cannot bear to miss those because we use them so frequently, or hardly at all. Next, we're actually going to do a little bit of backtracking here, heading down the stairs to where we fought Sir Wilhelm. Remember, I did point this out in the last episode. In the rafters of the building immediately before this one, there is a soul item that we did neglect to pick up. Not really sure why Corvians are randomly dying, but I guess that's a question better left unanswered. Climbing up the ladder and on the roof. Easiest way to get to this soul item is on the opposite side and through the windows, not this one, because if you drop down here, you'll just fall to the floor, although you can't see the shiny. Carefully step through this window, hopefully not getting the attention of both of the Corvian knights, and over here on this corpse, we get the soul of a crestfallen knight. And that is it for missed items, so let's go ahead and jump into the rest of the episode. Hey everyone, it's BlueLizardJello and welcome back to the episode at large. And let's take a look at the gear that we'll be using today. I have the Crow Talent upgraded to +9 and infused with Hollow. And directly below that, in my left hand, I have a Parrying Dagger also upgraded to +9 and also Hollow. The only reason that I have both of these hollowed is that with the Hollow infusion, if you are hollowed and you do upgrade it, you get free luck. And you can see that I've actually changed my stats, but we'll look at that closer in just a moment. I also have the Crow Quills upgraded to +9. I have infused these with Sharp for that dexterity bonus, and the Sunless Talisman upgraded to +4. For fashion, I have the Build Mask from Uria, Cornyx's Garb, and then I have both the Slave Knight Gauntlets and the Leggings. For rings, I have the Hunter's Ring just for added bonus with Dexterity, the Leo Ring so I can get bonus to all the thrust attacks, and then I have both the Pontiff's right and left eye, so as I continue to quickly attack, I can actually gain health back and get an increase to my damage. I do have some Karthus Rouge that I'll be using a couple of times, the Charcoal Pine Bundle, and then of course Alluring Skulls, which are always effective in this area, and the Kukris, just really to get enemies' attention. And if you want to take a look at my stats, I encourage you to pause the video here. I did use a Pale Tongue with Rosaria so I could respec and use these 2 crow weapons more effectively. Before we head off, let's take a look at the 2 spells we'll be using. I have Deep Protection for that extra attack, the absorption, resistances, and stamina recovery. And then I also have Doris's Gnawing, really good for very rapid bleed buildup, but it does some dark damage as well, so you're going to see me use these against some Millwood Knights later on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get some Deep Protection going, and we're going to start making our way through the mountain pass. There are a number of groups of followers that you're going to have to fight through. My best recommendation is use something like Kukris or throwing knives, or even a bow, by the way, large Titanite shard, so you can pull them one at a time if at all possible. There are some of them that are linked together, and there are also some others that will look down from high up cliffs, and they will alert other followers to your presence. I'm going to show you a way that seems to work out pretty well as far as taking out the individual groups of followers. Don't be fooled by the shiny straight ahead. We actually want to hug this cliff to get around this fire breather. Before we even take out him, we want to take care of this follower, because he can actually throw that javelin from pretty far away. Just take a look at the other patrolling followers. He fell down for us, which is going to make this a little bit easier for us. You can see the Crow Talon just doing a great work. I absolutely love the running L1 attack, and if you didn't know, that's the one that I just pulled off. You do this wonderful leaping slash with both claws and sets you up for a nice combo afterwards. You heard that scream? That is a follower alerting the others to my presence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let them come to me. Take a massive amount of damage, setting them up for that false security. But take a look at my health and take a look at the status buffs directly below my stamina bar. And I did just get some follower armor. You will occasionally see my health tick up and you'll see a certain status icon appear, which means that I'm doing extra damage as I continue to attack. On this corpse we have 10 prism stones. Super important, I'm well aware. There's that wonderful running L1 again. And then from here, just a small backtrack because there is another javelin follower we want to take care of before we start our large loop around. Now that he's out of the way, the first wave is done, but there are many that are either patrolling or they're sitting at the base of cliff, such as the ones that are coming up here. If you're not careful and you just run straight in, you will find yourself fighting many of these all together. With these shield followers, the awesome weapon art of the Crow Talons allows me to get the guard break and then follow it up with a critical for basically a one-hit kill. Essentially wasting a charcoal pine bundle because that would have been a single kill anyway, but taking out that shield follower. We have the javelin thrower up above. We're going to go and handle him right now. We do pick up a lot of gear in this episode, and you're probably already realizing that this is a longer episode than the ones that I have been making. I first made an episode that was just the mountain pass, but frankly, it was a bit boring. Not a whole lot happened, so I figured there's not a lot left. I might as well take care of the rest of the DLC and then just combine them. I figured not too many of you would mind that. Taking a look at some of the other followers and that bell, we'll be discussing that bell here in just a moment because we have actually already heard mention of that. But dropping down this small ledge, we get our first real item, the follower shield. Before we actually take a look at its stats, we do have this one torch follow that we want to take care of. And that one hasn't seen us, so let's just backtrack so we can look at the shield now. Now the shield isn't anything special, although 55 stability on a shield that doesn't even give you 100% physical damage reduction is pretty good. It does have 80% physical damage reduction and has 65 dark, which is not too bad. In fact, this shield works very well with the deep infusion. You can see that the weapon art is weapon skill. In other words, you don't bash with this, you don't do a parry, but whatever the weapon art of the right-handed weapon is, you'll perform that when you use the weapon skill of the shield. Personally, that's one of my favorite versions. Getting this torch follower's attention because there are a number of javelin throwers that are coming up and I don't want to get their attention just yet. You can see the bleed proc of that kukri. And then taking unnecessary damage, as I am wont to do. Taking care of that shield follower, and now right up on that snowy hill, we have two javelin throwers, and then directly behind them, we have one of these saber followers. You can see that we've already gotten the attention of at least one of the javelin throwers. They have a very large aggro range, so if you want them to come to you, you need to break line of sight and you need to back up. Offering up the free backstab, thought he would go over the edge, but that's okay, finish him off rather quickly. Carefully checking our surroundings, we still have quite a few enemies to deal with. Baiting the attack. Going in for the weapon art. He is dead. Now the Saber follower should hop down. Staying just outside of my range. But a couple of L1s and R1s later, he is done. Now while we have a couple of followers straight ahead, we also have this cave off to the right. We did kill the one follower up on top who would have breathed fire had we not killed him. Something I definitely recommend. I threw that alluring skull, but I threw it just a little bit too early because by the time I was actually ready to attack, they had already lost interest in the alluring skull. Running around the fire breath. Switching over to the crow quills. Get that good backstab. And then attempt to parry him accidentally because I thought I two-handed the weapon. And there's the weapon art throwing those blades, but you can see even upgrade to +9, the damage just is not very impressive. Really, the only time that I can see that being useful is if you're in an occasion like PvP where the enemy is running away, that might just get that last hit you need. Inside the cave, we do have an ember. And we want to get this individual's attention here in just a moment, but first we're going to loop around. Up here, here's another saber-wielding follower. I don't want to engage him exactly where he is because I don't want the other one to be alerted yet. Another fire breather. And let's talk about that bell. When we first talked to Sir Wilhelm, he talked about how another ash has entered the painting, even though no bell has tolled. What's interesting is that at the beginning of Dark Souls 3, we are awakened as an undead Ashen One because of the bell that was ringing, and it appears that some similar mechanic is present here in the painting. Although, because Frieda and her gang did not want the Ashen One to cause the flame to burn away and for the rot to burn away, it seems that they've actually dismantled that bell, so the bell could no longer toll. And that's why it's here just on the ground in the forest. So long to that follower, and then hiding behind the tree we get our Titanite chunk. And I get just a little bit turned around here because I go too far down. What we want to do is cross that one tree bridge, which we can't do so right here. We have to go up just a little bit. There we go. We can also see that we have now a little bit of a shortcut back to that one building where we met the painter. We have two javelin followers here. One of them is always going to rush forward on that tree, so we need to bait a couple attacks. Wait for our right opportunity. And there it is. I'm actually just trying to knock him off the tree. That way I can avoid that other enemy. Roll under that one. And there's the running L1 of the Crow Quills. Again, really, really unique movesets, and I have such a blast using them, even if they might not be the most powerful weapons. There's our other Titanite chunk. Now over to the left, that's where we killed that one javelin thrower, which is why I recommend killing him first, so he can't be picking us off as we try to loot that chunk. Yep, he's still kicking down there, although he's not doing particularly well. What you just saw there was the combo of the weapon art into a heavy attack. If you do the Crow Quill weapon art where you throw those blades and then you follow it up immediately with a heavy attack, you'll see this a couple of times. You do this really good long range thrust attack, which coupled with the Leo ring can do considerable damage. There's that bell again. And here we have a couple of options. One has a snowy ledge. We're going to look at that closer here in just a moment. But first we're going to loop around because we have this other saber follower here. Do the running L1 and a couple of pokes later. And there are a couple of followers down there below, but we're actually going to leave them alone. We want to focus on this tree. Look at all the eggs, all the rot, and then when we approach it, there's actually a prompt to knock it down. This is now creating a shortcut back to the bonfire that we just rested at. There's those followers down below. But we saw this mechanism in the last episode. We have now activated this elevator, which means we are free to use it as we see fit. Heading inside just to show exactly where we are, there's the painter. But now we can just ride it back topside and continue on with the mountain pass. We have a few more followers, but then we also have several wolves and Millwood Knights to deal with. Again, just taking a look at those followers, I'm going to ignore them. I don't often run past enemies, but they are so out of the way and inconsequential. I just don't simply see the reason. Before we go up that one narrow path, I want to actually clear several of the enemies that are topside. In fact, we're going to clear most of this area before we drop down into what can be a very dangerous area with the Millwood Knights. But what I wanted to show you here, besides the drop directly ahead of us, is that snowy ledge. We've already seen that once before. If we walk out on that, it is going to collapse and it's going to put us in a very dangerous predicament. I'm going to pull out my binoculars to show you. Directly across, we have one of the Millwood Knights with the great bow. It is possible that he can see you from this distance and start to shoot his Millwood great arrows at you, which again causes that large explosion as long as he uses the weapon art, which, spoiler alert, they always do. But all the followers that we're going to deal with are now dead, so now it is on to the wolves. Fortunately, we can use some of these rock walls to kind of funnel them, and it's not as open as we've experienced in the first snowfield, so they can't just loop around like they were able to previously. You have to use both audio and visual cues when you're in this area because the wolves are all over the place. That one down. On this corpse, we do get a pair of large titanite shards. And continuing on this lower path, there's actually going to be one more follower. Pardon me, I said that we were done with them. This is the torch follower, and it's appropriate that he's there. There's that thrusting R2 again, because on this corpse that he was guarding, we get the follower torch. We get the same weapon that we've seen them using. The follower torch is a torch that actually can be used as a club type weapon, and it can be upgraded. Now, even though it's reinforced with regular titanite, it cannot be infused and it cannot be buffed. Now, this actually does have the moveset similar to that of a mace, and it's really not a bad weapon. It does fairly decent. In fact, it can go all the way up to 310 attack rating at full plus 10 upgrade with the base stats that it requires. It does have strength, dex, faith, and intelligence scaling. Strength and dex for the physical damage, and then of course faith and intelligence for the fire damage, and then the weapon art breathes that fire. Now, it can actually work pretty well in conjunction with snap freeze, but as you're going to see here, I am going to use it. You get locked in this fire breathing animation, and it takes a little bit longer than I'd like. This can also prove very useful because in the next building, we encounter many of those giant flies, and they can cause rapid bleed buildup similar to the enemies that we fought outside of the Cathedral of the Deep. So having this on your person just to burn off some of those larvae can be a good idea. Several more wolves to deal with, and yes, they will howl to get the attention of others. Showing off the combos that are possible with the crow quills. It's not simply the thrust or throwing those blades. The L1 combo can be really effective because you do a combination of the claw attacks and the thrust of the actual rapier. Heading down below just to show you the area that has the Millwood Knights down in it. That's the area that you would fall into if you did allow yourself to fall on that snowy ledge. We're going to attack that from what I believe is a much safer position. But in order to get there, we do have a couple more Millwood Knights to deal with, including up here and to the left. I'm about to get a little fancy, because we have this one Millwood Knight guarding a very good weapon that we want to pick up. So what I decided I was going to do after casting the protection is just use some Doris's gnawing and then finish it off with a bit of a flurry. And you're about to see that here. Okay, frankly, that wasn't much of a flurry. I had meant to actually run in with the running L1 and do the jump attack, but he did give up a heavy gem and he was guarding the Quake Stone Hammer. This hammer we have seen already before. This is a true pure strength weapon. You can see it only requires strength to wield it, but it does require 40 strength. Now that's to one-hand it. Remember, you do get a 50% bonus when you two-hand a weapon. So for 40 strength, in order to two-hand it, you only need 27 strength. When this is upgraded to +5, it does get an A scaling, so this can be a very powerful pure strength weapon. And if you're using the Night Ring, by the way, you can actually wield this at only 22 strength, which is pretty minimal. And you can see there the skill Quake, burrow the hammerhead into the ground with a great slam and use strong attack to upheave the earth. We've already seen this, we felt this, and it can be pretty devastating. And now you have the ability to do it yourself. It also does weigh 15 weight units, which is pretty considerable, so you might need to consider both the Havel's Ring and maybe something like the Ring of Favor and Protection for that added equip load. Here we have a couple more Millwood Knights. The one's going to be taking shots at us with his bow, and then we do have the Millwood Great Axe wielding Millwood Knight here. I'm going to get his attention with Doris's Gnawing and then pull him back. We don't want to fight on this narrow cliff, because if you fall, you are going to die from the fall damage. We actually ran just a little bit too far too quickly, which is okay because now we have the opportunity to do another Doris's Gnawing. And you can see there, 516 damage. So that's a combination both of the dark damage and that rapid bleed buildup. But unfortunately here I am foolishly wasting the Doris's Gnawing. But now switching over to the Crow Quills, I'm attempting to feint the backstab, but I'm playing a very dangerous game. I'm trying to dodge his attacks, the arrow, and not allow myself to fall off the ledge. Quickly switched over to the Crow Talons just now, got some considerable damage with the weapon art. Now at this point I should have realized that I do have the parrying dagger. I could actually be parrying a lot of these attacks. Instead, I decide to switch back over to the Crow Quills and just continue to miss over and over again. Funny thing is, I think that arrow might have saved my life. Had I not taken that, he could have actually stun locked me in one of his devastating combos. He is almost dead here. And there it is, one Millwood Knight down, one more large Titanite shard. And now we just have this other one who is firing his bow. He should be pretty easy to deal with, especially if we get a little cheesy, which I'm about to do. Alluring Skull's equipped. All we're going to do is throw one. Actually throw a second one because I thought he might have already forgotten about us. Or forgotten about the skulls, rather. But we get a free backstab, immediately throw another skull. And now we're just going to rinse and repeat until he is dead. This is the safest method that I found to deal with them, especially when we have to fight on this cliff. And again, throw a skull. If I was using the Hornet Ring, this would have gone a lot faster as well. And there it is. He is now dead. He dropped for us another large Titanite shard. And dropping down here, we get two more large Titanite shards, and we have another one of these trees with the eggs and the rot down below. That's a path we're going to be taking that's going to circle back to the Ariandel Chapel. Pushing down that tree now allows us direct access all the way from the building we see in the distance all the way up to the area that we need to head for progression. But we do have this rather dangerous area coming up, and I'm going to show you how I like to deal with it. So getting prepared here, I need to drink my last Ashen Estus flask. Careful not to walk up, because what I meant to do was use Doris's Gnawing on this Millwood Knight. Now, I want to be careful here, because it is possible that he could drop down below, and we don't want that. We desperately want to kill him before we drop down ourselves. Some odd things have happened when I was practicing this area though. Sometimes when he does his heavy attack, he would actually teleport up to me, and he'd be able to land those hits. So if you see anything weird like that happen, understand it's happened to me too. Here's where I completely overshoot my backstep. But I'm still able to take him out pretty quickly and get another large Titanite shard. But now we have to be prepared because we have 2 more Millwood Knights to deal with. And as you can see here with the ground shaking, one of them, even though he's on the complete opposite side from where we are now, he can still do damage because of the weapon he's using. It just so happens though, that's the weapon that we're seeking down here. Now I've done this a couple different ways in practice. I have taken on that one great axe wielding Millwood Knight that's over to the left, but what I found to be much simpler is actually to deal with this one. He's the one who's actually causing the earth to shake and to explode underneath me. If I had more Estus, I'd be able to just continue to take him out with Doris's gnawing, but because I ran out, now I have to just deal with him as best I can in close range. As soon as you see those shock waves and those particles start to appear under the ground, you do need to get moving. Also, notice when he does some of his attacks, the axe actually goes all the way behind him. That reverse swing does damage as well, so don't think you can just simply circle around for the backstab. This would also be a great opportunity to use those alluring skulls again, or if you have it equipped, Rapport works famously here. I could also be using my Kukris watching this in replay, but he is dead. We get a large Titanite shard, and now we just have the 1 more Millwood Knight to take out. Putting on some Karthus Rouge so I can get the added bleed damage. You know, I did say I was going to show off the hollow build, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. But frankly, I am a little bit disappointed. I thought the bleed buildup would be more significant with the hollow infusion with 50 luck, well technically 42. I'm getting an extra +8 from both the parrying dagger and the crow talons. But even with the Karthus Rouge attached, it just doesn't seem to proc as often as I would expect. You did just see one there, but he's still at over half health now. I am just trying to play it safe, although after this, we really don't have any more enemies that we absolutely need to fight that are between us and the bonfire. One of the best attacks I find that's easy to punish is actually when he does these charge attacks, because if you roll through it, you can often set yourself up for a backstab. Now I chose to go for a weapon art just for funsies, but did I really just say funsies in a video? Have I ever said funsies in a video before? At any rate, I get yet another heavy gem, and there are a few corpses scattered around here, so we have a Soul of a Crestfallen Knight, a large Soul of a Crestfallen Knight, and then over here we're back down to a Soul of a Crestfallen Knight, but there's a little cave in the back that the one Millwood Knight was guarding. And heading back there in the corner, on this fallen Millwood Knight, we get the Earthseeker, which is the axe that he was using. The Earthseeker is not a true strength weapon, although this can work really well with strength and faith combos. It takes 24 strength to wield it in one hand, but only 16 if you're going to two-hand it. This is upgraded with Titanite scales. At +5, it can deal 418 attack rating. It does 100% physical damage, not any magic or lightning damage, even though it does have faith scaling. But the hyper armor during the weapon skill is fantastic. You saw that as he was doing that, it caused the ground to shake and then erupt under the enemy that he was targeting. During that casting animation, your hyper armor is incredible, and it's very difficult for you to be knocked out of it. That is actually going to do it for the mountain pass. So from here, you saw that I kind of looped around. We're going to head up this path, and we're going to cross the tree that we just kicked down recently. heading into this cave. This is going to put us below the chapel that we crossed that bridge to get to in our very first or second episode, I believe. And here we have a number of these giant flies. I'm equipping the torch just in case I were to get hit, but I'm actually not going to battle them just yet. I am going to kill all of them in the next part, but for now, all I want to do is get through here, unlock the shortcut, and be able to rest at the bonfire so I can reset my stats and reset my flasks. Top of these long stairs, here's the door that did not open from the other side. We are now back in the chapel. There's the bonfire. There's Sister Frieda over to the right. But I'm going to take a quick trip upstairs because I want to show you that the painter has now moved to the chapel.
Thou art ash. Thou hast a pact made with Uncle Gael, so I wish to tell thee all. Behold its size. This is my canvas. It's to be a cold, dark, and very gentle place. But first, I must see flame. I wish to paint a picture of a cold, dark, and very gentle place. One day, it will make someone a goodly home. That's why I must see flame.
You know, they must not be really good at painting if they consider these to be very gentle places. But this is where I was going to end the episode, but instead, small transition. Because here I am for the rest of the episode. I have completely changed my stats and my gear, so before we move on and finish Ashes of Ariandel, let's take a look. I do have the Earthseeker that we just picked up, upgraded to +4. You can take a look at some of that damage. I have the Valor Heart that we got from defeating the first boss, also upgraded to +4. The Cleric's Sacred Chime upgraded to +8. I do have the Follower Torch equipped just in case we do need to use it down below, although truth be told I am just going to unequip that because I realized I was over 70%. For armor, I'm wearing the Follower's Helm, Dancer's Armor, Antiquated Gloves, and the Pontiff Knight Leggings. I am using the Knight's Ring, the Priestess Ring, Ring of the Sun's Firstborn, and the Prisoner's Chain. And then for consumables, I just have my Estus, my Ashen Estus, and Blood Red Moss Clumps to get rid of the bleeding from the flies we'll be fighting. And then because I did change my stats again, let's go ahead and take a look, and if you want to jot them down or just follow along, go ahead and pause the video here. One of the biggest changes is you'll notice I have 40 faith currently. We're going to head downstairs, and I am going to rest at the bonfire because I want to show you the 2 spells that I'll be using. One of them might catch you a little off guard. I have Bountiful Light for the health restoration, but I also have the Way of White Corona. Yes, I am actually going to show this off. In fact, I am incredibly impressed at how this terrible skill actually was utilized in the final battle. Well, at least in one of the phases. But now it's time to go kill us quite a few flies. I'm going to show you a few of the fights, and then I'm just going to speed the rest up. But more importantly, I want to show you the loot that's available. Using the Valor Heart, you can see it does have a variety of moves, and these flies, interestingly enough, take double damage when they're in flight. So you can see there, if I can do that running R2, it will kill them in a single hit if they're mid-flight. Watching that spit and the grab because that will cause bleed to build up very quickly, and it doesn't go away until you've equipped a torch, used the Blood Red Moss Clump, or rested at a bonfire. You can see that bleed already building up very quickly. Let's go ahead and use a Moss Clump. Now these flies drop human pine resin, and it's not all that uncommon, so it's not a terrible place to farm if you'd rather do that than buy them from patches. That fly, by the way, was guarding an illusory wall, so we're going to have to go back there and attack it so we can get downstairs without dropping down and taking unnecessary fall damage. There is the light attack of the Valor Heart's weapon skill. The heavy attack would cause you to do a thrust attack. I don't remember if I actually used that in this episode, but we'll be on the lookout. Getting some health restoration going. We have that shiny here, but We've been playing Dark Souls long enough to know that is a trap, using the Corona to get his attention, and then he just falls down. On this corpse, all we get are a couple of dung pies, so a useless item trying to bait us into a trap. FromSoft, you're going to have to get up a little bit earlier than that to pull the wool over our eyes. Knocking away that illusory wall and heading downstairs, we have a number of these flies. So since you've seen me kill a couple, go ahead and sit back, relax, grab a drink, and prepare for the carnage. Using any sort of range attacks can work very well because, again, as they're flying towards you, all you need to do is hit them with a projectile and they'll take twice as much damage, and you can keep them from getting that spit off or that grab attack. I chose to run around and kill all of the flies before I showed any of the loot just to make it a little bit safer. But you can see I took quite a bit of damage. We also did get another human pine resin, but that's neither here nor there. Our very last fly. Now we can run around and collect the loot. So right in the middle, we do have this blood gem in case we want to infuse a weapon with bleed. And then over here in the corner, we get the entire set of Wilhelm's armor. This Hollow Knight, who served the three sisters who founded the Sable Church, was particularly loyal to the eldest, which is Sister Frieda, and was known as a cold-blooded hangman. A little bit of interesting lore about Sir Wilhelm, but down here, this crank is why we came down in the first place.
As ashes will be, ever seeking fire.
Frieda is not going to be too pleased with us uncovering that little secret. But speaking of secrets, over here on this far wall, we have this obvious illusory wall. Now, you're going to have to forgive my gameplay and my editing here. There isn't just one crystal lizard here, there are two. And here, when I go and try and kill this one, you can see I tried to get a little fancy, and he completely disappeared. But this gives me a great opportunity to show that if you do miss a crystal lizard, all you need to do is quit out, because when you come back into the game, he'll be in his original spawn location. And there he is here, so let's go and take him out quickly. Quickly, I said. There we are. He'll drop a single twinkling titanite for us, and you're going to see another quit out because I forgot there is one at the top of the stairs. You can see him shining just at the top there. And somehow, magically, all those flies are alive. Not really sure how that happened. You can hear them buzzing around in the background. There's another twinkling titanite. It definitely doesn't have anything to do with the fact that I fell off the branches trying to get down to this lower section. And you can just ignore this puddle of blood. I don't know where those came from. I've noticed that occasionally when you're playing Dark Souls, you'll just find someone else's souls laying around. At least that's the impression that I'm under, considering I don't think I've ever died while playing these games. Unless you can recall a time, it's escaping me. At any rate, carefully walk down these routes just like we did to get into the depths of the painting. And the area we're finally heading to is this Colosseum type area. This is the same place, or at least the same set piece, where we fought Priscilla in the painted world of Ariamis in the original Dark Souls. It is also directly above where we fought the champion Gravetender and his Great Wolf. Knowing full well that I am going to take some fall damage, I'm going to prepare by using Bountiful Light and the Gentle Prayer Miracle, so I can get some of that passive HP regen. And on this corpse, we get a new Pyromancer Flame, the Pyromancer's Parting Flame, and also a couple of Homeward Bones. We'll look at this Parting Flame in just a moment, because right now we are invaded by the Mad Dark Spirit, Livid Pyromancer Dunnel. As his name would imply, he is of course a Pyromancer. We're going to see those in use here in just a moment. He is also using the Chaos Blade, so he can cause some pretty good bleed buildup. Now when you give him distance, he's going to use this Pyromancer, which is the Floating Chaos. We'll be picking it up once we take him out. It will fire 3 fire orbs before dissipating. This is a version of that same Pyromancer that we saw with the Smoldering Gru down in the Demon Ruins. Now, as an invader, he can heal at least twice with Estus. It might even be 3 times, which is a bit unusual for most NPCs. But if you are lucky, you can actually get him close to the edge and just knock him off. Alternatively, you could use one of the Undead Hunter charms to make it so he couldn't even use his Estus Flask. But you saw there, using that weapon art, it caused him to get thrown into the air, and then I was able to chase him to the edge, and that's it for Pyromancer Dunnel. And upon his death, we do get that Floating Chaos. So now let's take a moment to look at the Pyromancer's Parting Flame and this new Pyromancer spell. The Pyromancer's Parting Flame is a bit different than the standard Pyromancer Flame, and I would hope so, otherwise why would they give us a second one? It does have a lower spell buff and it does have a higher stamina cost, but this works really well with melee ranged Pyromancers like Great Combustion because it does have an extra little burst of flame that does about the same amount of damage as the combustion skill of the standard Pyromancer's Flame. But this also has the Parting Flame weapon art. The way that this works is if you kill 12 enemies with this equipped, you don't have to get it with this weapon, just with it equipped, then you can actually use the weapon art for a single dose of Estus. And then we have the Floating Chaos Pyromancy. Summons a fire-spitting Chaos Orb. Chaos burns away in the blink of an eye, but was the primordial life born in the bed of chaos, and a grievous symbol of Izalith's sin. This can work pretty well in PvP because it makes them not only dodge your physical attacks, but also they have to watch out for those floating chaos fire. And now we're just going to go back to the bonfire that we started at.
Be forewarned, eager Ash. Should this world wither and rot, even then would Ariandel remain our home. Leave us be, Ashen One. Sweep all thought of us from thy mind, as thy kind always have.
Before we head down, I want to show off this summon sign. Over here in the corner, you have the option to summon Slave Knight Gael. 2 interesting facts about this summon. Number 1, you don't even need to be embered. If you are unembered, you'll still see his sign and you can still summon him. But number 2, as it stated, you can summon him later at a separate location. He actually won't show up until the second phase of the fight.
Flickering once again. Not enough blood yet shed. My flail. Bring me my flail. Ah, Frieda. What stops thine ears? Please, my flail. Right away.
Such absolutely fantastic voice acting. This is Father Ariandel. As we approach him, the fight doesn't trigger right away. Instead, we need to attempt to talk to him.
Bring Frieda to me, please. Dost thou not see the flame flickering once again? Soon will it surge. I can see it, feel it.
Fret not, Father. We have no need of thy flail. 'Tis only the flame quivering at misguided ash. Please avert thine eyes. I will snuff out these ashes for good.
Phase 1 is just Sister Frieda. This phase isn't too difficult as long as you understand her mechanics, which we're going to talk about here. Don't jump. That's the first tip. Don't jump. I had a little bit of a controller mishap, but you saw that I cast Bountiful Light just so I had a little bit of HP regen so I could take a few more chances with attacking her. When she does that dash backwards and disappears, you want to both listen and look for the direction that the snow goes in. Follow that, she will appear once you get close enough, and you can actually land backstabs pretty reliably. She staggers incredibly easy. She can also be parried pretty reliably if you're a player who is pretty confident in their parrying abilities. The backstabs are one of the more effective ways, but she is also fairly weak to bleed, so if you want to slap on some Carthus Rouge on a weapon, you can definitely get that bleed to proc several times. Once again, going invisible, you have to track where that trail of snow goes, circle around for the backstab, and then immediately with the Valor Heart, I'm going to charge up another R2, get another R2 after that for some really good damage. When she does this combo attack and jumps back, you need to roll to the side, but not in the direction of that ice, because as you can see, it does explode. That causes not only frostbite buildup, but massive damage. Circle around for the backstab, get that charged R2 with another follow-up. Also, when she stands back and decides to wind up, this is a great opportunity for a running and jumping attack. Invisible again. You can see she jumped right over my head that time, and if you're fast enough turning around, you can even see her land briefly. But because she is so easily staggered, if you can get her in a corner, while you probably won't stun lock her to death, you'll be able to get some considerable damage. now we are on to phase 2 of this fight, where Father Ariandel is going to join the fight. This is when you're going to see the Way of White Corona in a method that actually works pretty well. When I first picked up the spell, I said the only time that it really works is for large, slower enemies. And if you can get the distance exactly right, look at how quickly that damage builds up, because that Corona does stay in place. Now they share a single health bar, so you can attack either Frieda or Father Ariandel, but I highly encourage you to focus solely on the Father because he is slower. Frieda will typically stay further back, and you can get a really good opportunity for a riposte, and you're going to see that in a moment. Even though I actually failed to get the riposte, I only get the stagger. But look at the health already dwindling just from a few of these Coronas. You have to get the distance exactly right though, because 170 damage per hit is nothing too impressive. At about 50% HP, Frieda is going to start healing both her and Father Ariandel. I typically choose to ignore that, because while the heal can be significant, I can do a lot more damage very quickly. And there's the stagger. I do miss the riposte, that's okay, although I am getting a little bit sloppy and I allow myself to get caught in that frostbite attack. And you can see there the Corona, while I was getting attacked, was still able to take them out because it was positioned in such a way that it landed directly on its hitbox. Once you defeat phase 2, you get a Titanite slab. We now have Black Flame Sister Frieda. She has a host of new attacks, but one of the most easy to punish is that one you just saw there that she'll almost always open the fight up with. She'll do this jump attack with dark magic. The trick is, you need to get close enough, and then as soon as she hits the ground, you dodge towards her or to the side, and then you can land a backstab. She can now turn invisible yet again, and she will cast these frost attacks. She'll do that twice. You can still watch the direction of the snow to know where she's going, because on the third attack, she's going to do this massive black flame power attack. But it's a great opportunity if you can get close to her to get in a couple of free hits. She still is easy to stagger, and you have to be a little bit more aggressive than you may like to, and that's one of the things I really had a hard time learning about this fight. Getting some distance, hopefully, to heal. You can see there I was just a little bit late in my dodge, so I took a huge hit, over half of my HP gone in a single hit from that dark attack. Right there you saw those two trailing black flame attacks, easy to dodge to the side. You want to watch out for that little hook move that she does, because she'll pull you in and then immediately follow it up with one of the dark magic attacks. But if you can avoid the first attack, roll towards her, it's really easy to get a free attack in or two. There's another great one to punish, as long as you dodge at the last second towards her. So you can see that she dashed over to the right. Watch this frost attack. Now here, I know that I'm too far ahead, so instead I'm just going to target her and then wait just a second to dodge that last attack, otherwise that can do a ton of damage. I tried to do a charge R2 attack and have her dash right into it, but I missed, and then you can see almost half of my health gone, actually over half of my health gone, again, in just a single hit. Playing a little bit too loose here. And you're going to see me play even looser here in just a second. There's that one that's great to punish. And she is just about dead. At this point, all I would need to do is throw a Kukri or maybe the Way of White Corona. But instead, I decided let's get fancy. And miss with the Earthseeker's weapon attack. And then take a lot of unnecessary damage from Sister Frieda. Last Estus. Get a little bit more health. There's the flame attack. Dodge at the right time. And Black Flame Frieda is dead. For killing her, we do get the soul of Sister Frieda. And you can see a couple of bonfires have actually shown up. We'll talk about those here in a second. If you consume this soul, you'll get 20,000 souls, but you can transpose these into either Frieda's Great Scythe or the Rose of Ariandel. We'll take a look at both of those once we get back to Firelink Shrine. This is the standard bonfire that'll appear after you kill Sister Frieda, but here in the back, right in front of this odd serpentine woman statue, we have one that says Travel to the Dreg Heap. If you have the Ring City, this bonfire can take you directly to the beginning of that DLC. But we'll be looking at that in just a little while. Before we head back to Firelink Shrine, we're going to go back and have a quick conversation with the painter because she will have some new dialogue now that she can see the flame, or at the very least she can hear it.
I can hear the fire crackle, and soon I will see it. My thanks, Ashen One. I will finish the painting of a cold, dark, and very gentle place, so that it might make a home for someone someday.
With that dialogue done, and again before we head to Firelink Shrine, we did mention this early on when we got to the Corvian settlement, that we want to go back and talk to that one Corvian settler once Sister Frieda is dead. So we'll head to the Corvian settlement bonfire. And he has moved locations just a little bit. So heading into the building where we saw him previously, in that little warm alcove to the left, you can see he has moved. All we need to do is step outside.
Oh, my, thank you. I can hear the crackling from here. The sound of my home. The painting of Ariandel burning away.
And he gifts us with another Titanite slab.
When the world rots, we set it afire for the sake of the next world. It's the one thing we do right, unlike those fools on the outside.
But now let's make our way back to Firelink Shrine and conclude the Ashes of Ariandel DLC. The music has changed because I did decide to give the Eyes of the Firekeeper to our Firekeeper, just so I can change the ambiance here. Talking to the remains of Ludleth, we can look at Frieda's Great Scythe. Really, this is actually a pair of scythes because you can see them when you use the weapon art. This is a fantastic dex weapon, and even better if you're doing dex and intelligence. It gets an A scaling in dexterity at only +3, an A scaling in intelligence at +4. This has frost buildup, it does physical damage, it does magic damage when you use the weapon art. It can be an incredibly effective tool. And you can see there the skill Alfreda's stance. When you are holding the weapon skill down, you have to walk pretty slowly, but with a light attack, you'll do this very quick jump and spin attack with a pair of scythes, and the heavy attack will actually cause frost to appear on the ground and then explode just like she was using. Or we can choose the Rose of Ariandel. Now the Rose of Ariandel, it can cast miracles, but it also has the weapon moveset of a club. Now it cannot riposte and it cannot be backstab, but on the strong attack, as I said, it can cast miracle. Awakening, you will whip yourself in the back and take damage, just like Father Ariandel was using it for, but even though you take damage, you now do 20% more defensive damage with your miracles, which can be really effective if you also use a stronger catalyst to cast the miracles with the awakening buff. And lastly, just showing you that once you kill Sister Frieda, if you talk to the Shrine Handmaid, you can of course pick up her armor, which is only 3 pieces, the Ordained Hood. After renouncing everything, Frieda discovered a people that she wished to protect and assumed the precise form that they yearned for. I find this interesting. So she didn't actually look the way that she looked previously. She had to assume that form. And then we also get her dress and her trousers. And if you wish, you can also buy leather armor, but that's completely besides the point.
Ashen One, be sure.
But that is actually going to do it for everything possible in Dark Souls 3, specifically the Ashes of Ariandel DLC. So if you learned something, please let me know what you learned in the comments below, and if I missed something, as always, please put that down there as well so we can all keep learning. But I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time for the Ringed City.